I got to set myself free. Whoa, and be who the Most High wanted me to be. Yeah, Babylon set the captives free. Yeah. Yo! Now listen, every day you got people, children going to prison. Babylon, they steal and they rob, telling us that they're just doing their job. They made to protect cancer, but they're just killing the people when I look and observe. Equal rights and justice. Be careful of the works that you practice. Repatriation, show love. Me have no hate for no one. Burn down the prisons. Say you got not hate on no one. Don't show nobody hates no one. Me have to leave Babylon. No licky licky, don't cling to Babylon, no. Live in a Babylon. I wanna get you, Babylon. I got to set myself free, and be who the Most High wanted me to be. Yeah. In the world, with your naked complain, they know hospitals, no schools for the boys and girls. With your naked eyes, don't you see that it's slavery? Gotta work so hard in the sun. People unemployed, not getting any money. All right, y'all. So that was from Sizzla. It's called Free. It's an oldie, but one of the ones, again, that I keep on repeat because Sizzla has helped shape my consciousness of who I am today. Okay? There's very pivotal stones by listening to his consciousness, his tap-in, that gave me access to things that are required to shape my own reality. And for that, I am grateful. Okay? So shout out to Sizzla. And of course, that is going to lead into what our conversation is going to be about today. Okay? I know. I said that I was going to be posting more, and I can commit to one video a week, okay, at least. But I'm going to do two during this sitting and then post two different segments accordingly. So you're going to get two videos this week, okay? Class is back in session. We're back in, season, okay? So good job. So today we're going to talk about stewardship. We're going to talk about this entity, Yahweh, Jah, right? Because there has seemed to be different confusions as I'm listening to people. All right. Now, you see how I began this with Sizzla Free. This is Free on the Maroon rhythm. This rhythm was real back in the day when I was growing up. This rhythm was real hot, right? And there's a lot of different people who sang a verse on this rhythm. The Maroon rhythm, if you want to look it up. Sizzla Kalonji, Free Maroon rhythm. Okay. So I want to just first say that Jah is not God. Okay. So I don't believe in any kind of religion, or I don't participate in any religion, right? I have my own rituals that I have to do for myself because I don't put anything before God. Okay. So there's God and then there's me. Right? So I don't believe in dogmatic things, do this, don't do that. I don't believe in that because everything has a divine lesson, okay, in everything that we do, right? So I don't attribute God as something that is external and separate from myself. All right? I am truly a daughter of God. Okay, I've graduated to being a child of God, to being a daughter of God. Consciously. All right. So so when you hear people saying Jah, it is a frequency that we're calling upon in consciousness. It's not something that is, when I say worshipped, I mean, it's not something that is separate from I and I. It's not separate from myself. Okay. It is consciousness. All right. So there was a point in time in which were not self-aware when you're operating as children, right? Most likely living in Babylonian, and I say Babylonian, I mean like that term Babylonian in my consciousness represents a state of unknowing, unawareness of self. Okay? Staying in an infantile state of being, lack of awareness, lack of consciousness. Okay? So when you're in that kind of state, you're destined to bring forth confusion, especially if you don't take the time to find the stillness within to tap into your source God. So to hear your particular frequency that's connected to source God to do that. This is when you're moving without consciousness. Okay? Which brings forth a great deal of confusion and contradictory thought forms. Okay? You don't know yourself yet. You're not aware of yourself yet. Okay? Ay, ay, ay. Yes, God. I gotta slow down. So, yes. So when we talk about Ya, Ja, I don't promote, I don't, you don't have to, we say thank you. When we say we're praising something, we're saying thank you to this consciousness because that consciousness has transformed our consciousness, our state of being, so we could create a particular reality that benefits ourselves, that is in union with nature, that is truly one with God. That is the difference. Right now, a lot of these religious institutions, they base their teachings off the consciousness that was created, which is Yahweh. Yahweh, Jah, it's an entity, right? You guys are now getting hip to, I've seen it been, well, if you're on my timeline, you've been seeing a lot of this idea of this egregore consciousness, right? There's many different ways that we can communicate this energy, right? Everything is like through communication, right? The egregores is not necessarily a negative or a positive thing. It has to do with states of consciousness that end up entering the energy field, and then the more people who chant it, the more people who you align with it, it creates an entity of its own, and that entity can literally possess others. Okay, so the elders of society realize this, even though they may not have the words for it, but now that we are here trying to gain understanding, there are different words in which we can use to communicate the idea. Everything is consciousness, every single thing, right? Let me fix this real quick. All right. So those who have come before us tapped into this energy of Yahweh. It's not God. Okay. It is, God is whole and omnious. It's every single thing. Every time you breathe, you're breathing in God. Right now, which level you're resonating at is going to be the expression of God in your particular vessel. But there's energies that were higher than us, that was already created past the human experience, that was just ready to possess others, right? When I say possess, I mean being able to be embodied by others, become one with, right? For those of you who study African theology or ancient Egypt theology, this is the same reason why you have things like Aset, Sekhmet. These are energy signatures that were consciously given a name to be embodied. Okay? For those of you who are in Yoruba or Ifa, you understand this as different energies like Oshun, right? Eshu, right? These are energy signatures that you literally throughout your life, you get familiar with them and you embody them accordingly to your spirit and how you're going to interact with that entity that already exists. And they don't have no buddy. Right? We talk about the nobodies. They're the ones who don't have nobody, but they see everything. Right? What is it? Nobody cares until nobody comes up missing. Right? They're the ones who don't have nobody, but they know everything. It's not required. They move through the many. All right? But that one particular entity is not God. This is why you cannot just, you can't just be like, oh, Yah is God. That's not the end of all it. That is one particular frequency of the wholeness of God, right? When you pass a certain level of school of life, you gain the understanding of the idea of wholeness, right? And you no longer move in a polarizing way. You can allow negativity to run through you, and you gain the understanding, and you learn from it. And then you allow positivity to run through you. You gain understanding, and you move from it. Okay, so when you get past that, the lessons of polarity and duality, you understand that God is the wholeness. Right? Some things will bring forth what you would consider negativity, but again, and again, there's people who are here to help transmute that negative experience into positive things, meaning how can we move forward? And it has to do with a sine wave, right? Everyone has this particular frequency and vibration. And when we look at that, we're talking about waves. That's what we're talking about. Vibration and frequency is waves, which has ups and downs, positive and negatives. And as you can only move forward if you are able to do this thing right here, if you can ride the wave. Okay, and I had another video where I kind of touched upon that. If you guys go back in my archive, you can see I kind of touch base on that. So I just want to say that that's the idea that Jah is not God. Just like how you wouldn't say Sekhmet is God. You would not say Oshun is God. And in this idea, in our human brains, we call them deities. There's only one God. There's just many different energies and consciousness states that are in the totality of God, right? This is why we can't really judge nobody. This is the idea of when people say it's not good and bad and blah, blah, blah. They're really just saying this is the state of one's soul, their current consciousness, right? And then they have particular life events that will round them out for them to gain understanding. Right? And that has nothing to do with anything external from you. That's an individual thing. Okay? But where we meet up in community, right? Everybody plays their particular resonance and particular frequency, part of the thing that we're creating externally from ourselves. Okay? But no matter what, you should be following your own internal signal. Because even the people that you meet have to be in your pathway. They have to be in your divine understanding, right? So that's why we give thanks for both the positive and the negative experiences, because that is the things that make us whole. All right. Now, if you're coming from a Christian standpoint and you're understanding Christianity language, right? You guys separate yourselves with the devil and then God, or demons and angels. I think also any Abrahamic religion understands that concept as well, right? The reason why I say you guys is because where I disconnect from that consciousness is that I do not, I don't limit God. Okay. God is in everything that I do. I cannot separate myself from God. Consciously, I cannot. So this is why I can't just subscribe to something external from me trying to tell me that, somebody has to be between me and God. That's not my experience. It's not part of my life path. Okay? Or I've already graduated from that particular level of consciousness and understanding. Okay? Through knowing, not belief. You understand? So I have to put that plug in there. So when, anytime that you see me, just like how I talked about Silsila in the beginning of this, and I gave thanks to him, we give thanks to the Yah consciousness, because that is embodied in people who understood that level of consciousness. You understand what I'm saying? And they have embodied it so much that they incorporate it in their lives, and their lives then produced an outcome because of it. All right? For me, that gateway was through Rastafarianism, which is also, again, they use the Bible. So I would say it's a branch of Christianity as well, right? The idea of it is Christianity, but they still are still very connected to nature. Right? That's the difference, right? You ain't gonna see them in the church like in the city. They're still very connected to the land, and that's the difference. Okay? And they also, I don't believe they believe Jesus Christ died to be no savior, because I'm hearing Capleton in my mind right now. Okay, I'm hearing one of his lyrics say that nobody ever died to save us. Okay, and that's another big part of why I cannot claim Christianity as something that, as part of my being, is because I don't believe people die for anybody else's sins. You have to take accountability, and this is what separates the children from the daughters and the sons. This is what separates us from being lambs and turns into goats. Right? Because wherever you do, you stand upon it. You understand? You can't blame nobody, you can't blame God, you can't blame the devil, you blame it yourself, because it's you that are opening portals and creating your reality, co-creating with God. That's the difference. All right? So, and I'm also not that, I have a narrow path, but my mind is not narrow, if you understand what I say. Right? I have a narrow path, but my mind is not narrow. I do not limit God. Period. All right? So I think where that comes from is that people get scared not to, I guess, worship multiple gods. But when you have a fundamental understanding that there's only one God and you're just experiencing God on different consciousness levels, that you relax yourself. The condemnation goes away, right? The judgment goes away because you walk. And when you walk, you experience certain things that just kind of, you can't really go backwards. You don't see something, you don't live something, you can't go back. There's only forward, and being present. Don't get me wrong, your past is in your present. Your past meets your future in the present moment for sure. But this is why you do certain workings, gain certain understandings in your, I'm going to say isolation, and that word scares people. But the idea is that you're never really truly by yourself when you have God. One, first and foremost. All right. But when you are able to unpack yourself, and then you see how you're interacting with society, and you see the different reflections of yourself. One, you treat your past selves with compassion instead of disgust or disdain. You have patience with them because you now gain the love and patience that you have for yourself, you can give to others. All right. And so in my practice, I always give thank you to the messengers. Sizzler is a messenger. The consciousness of Jesus Christ, who was a man, and I don't worship man, You understand, period. So I can't, I can't join the Christian team because I do not praise or worship no man. There's only God. All right? So either way, and I don't glorify the crucifixion, right, of a man who is preaching forgiveness. Okay? I don't put anybody ahead of God and I. So anything that I do is direct. All right. And there's only a few people in my mind, at least until I meet all you, please find me so we can all commune together. But I have not met a lot of people who walk around with that energy, knowing that what they're doing is co-creating with God, right? They don't outsource that power to something that has happened in the past, nor have they outsourced that, or they're not too scared to understand that they're creating their reality, so they can't really complain. Any complaint you have is because of something you're not paying attention to, right? They don't want to take that humility part of life and understand that they're co-creating. So anything that they're complaining about is them. You're only complaining about yourself, right? But that is a hard pill to swallow, and that's why people have to go through many dark nights of the soul to realize that the demon is them. The angel is you. The angel and the demon is you both. Both of them is you. All right? We're not holy, we are whole. It's different. We're not for show. It's not for show. It's not for some ego boast. Like, oh yeah, I am an angel. I'm such a good person. I care that people think that I'm a good person. Believe that all of that bullshit is done. We don't care, right? When you're kind, you're kind. It don't matter if you're here, there, if you're behind closed doors. It doesn't matter. You're authentically a kind person. You're authentically a kind person, right? But again, every life has and again, every life has its own lessons. And we take them with humility and patience and love for oneself, okay? And our journeys here, period. All right, so the point is that we give thanks. We give thanks to Sizzler. We give thanks to Jesus Christ consciousness and also the man who was Jesus Christ. We've had many books, just not just only that book that you only read, okay? Not just his story in the King James Bible, okay? So we give thanks for those who have documented their life experiences so that we can see the parallels accordingly and learn from it. Not get stuck in a dogmatic state of mind, but to understand that we can empower ourselves with knowledge. And when we embody the knowledge, we then walk with a certain level of wisdom on this earth. Okay, let me take a sip and take a pause. All right. So yes, so we thank Sizzler, we thank Jesus, I thank all my messengers, because a lot of the messengers are also not, wildly known. People in my life become messengers all the time, right? So thank you to all my close messengers who are near me. One of my best friends, I don't even know if she notices she be channeling and reading, but she do. She just probably don't have the awareness yet. I thank you. Her name literally means messenger. So I don't know where the connection is. I don't know, but it's okay. I love her regardless. I thank her as well. See what I'm saying? I give thanks and I give praise. When I say praise, and again, I don't want to make this something like, I'm sitting and I'm putting you above me. No, just if you give me something, I say thank you. I don't crucify, nor do I worship the messenger. Same thing to go with Yah, Jah. Right? It is a consciousness that we are grateful for, because our ancestors, those who predate us, that's all that ancestors really mean, right? They developed a consciousness to help elevate, right? The part of us that we came here to gain connection to, which is our humanity, right? So that's why certain principalities, laws were created, because we didn't want to go further down the opposite direction where we were destroying ourselves, or having hatred for ourselves, right? Because there's freedom of choice, which God loves us. He gives us the freedom. You could go in either direction. Either go into the path of destruction, or go to the path of creation, right? Which is also just a loop. But my point is that there's a certain state of consciousness that literally believes that they're separate from God, and so they do crazy stuff, not knowing that they're doing it to themselves. You see what I'm saying? So that's why the ideas of laws, don't kill thy neighbor or don't covet, the reason why they developed those things is because they saw what the consciousness as a whole was doing, and how it was dragging people low and causing them to get into states of depression and did not enjoy life. They couldn't see the beauty of life any longer because they were separating themselves from God. All right? Nothing that we do here is new. All right? So we give thanks to our elders who created the egregore of Yahweh, because it was like, hey, Olia, check this. If you just go out here and you're just doing whatever you want to do, it leads to these kind of problems in society: animosity, vengefulness, wrathfulness. Why is lust a bad thing? Because people get hurt feelings and then it turns into revenge. It's a state of lack, right? When you start getting into the conscious mindset of I'm lacking, you start creating a reality of poverty. Now, is that necessarily a good or bad? Do you want to experience poverty? You will. Matter of fact, some of you guys are experiencing poverty, but not knowing that you're actually creating it for yourself, right? But when you start saying things like that, people get hurt and they're like, I didn't do this to me. Other people put me in this position. And again, it's a level of consciousness, a Babylonian consciousness, where you have to blame other people for your particular state. Narrow-mindedness, right? But like I was saying before, this same consciousness, I understand why people click up and they're like, no, I can only learn from this group of people. It's because they're scared to go back and interacting with society, because they don't want to be led down a certain path. But like I was saying, when you know yourself, and when you have that divine connection within, which you gain through your own inner conversation, this is why you got to block out the world. That's why you got to stop scrolling. That's why you got to find time to have that communion with your soul that's connected to God. It cannot be separated. Okay? That's when you're able to move through communities with the confidence of God, with the glow of God. So somebody comes to you and they're saying some crazy stuff to you, you're going to be able to be like, oh, this is not in alignment. And you would not even you won't harbor any nonsense with them, right? You could choose to separate yourself. You could choose to give wisdom if it's being called to, right? But that's the power of the present moment. You're going to know what to do when you're presently faced with some things, right? And don't trust me, I've been around all your hard-headed, hard-back children, right? And some of all is really, it's more difficult to try to crack, or try to gain understanding, but I just give that up to God. It's not my role, right? Wisdom doesn't beg, all right, or force itself upon people, because we understand it's just a matter of time. All right, either you're gonna be reborn again or you're gonna keep dying. You know, when I say reborn again, I mean, because death is just a transformation. So I'm not trying to use words to cause fear, but what I'm saying is either you're going in that direction or you're going in this direction. It's really that simple. And there's no wrong answer because there's already checks and balances either way. You understand? All right. So we're talking about Earth before, and that was a perfect segue, but I just kept on going with this whole thing, right? But I want to talk about stewardship versus ownership. Stewardship versus ownership. Okay? So stewardship is when you're responsible for or the management of resources. Okay? i.e. land, the organization of, I guess, people in a community, right? Food, assets, right? They're trusting you to care for it, right? I have stewardship over Puma. When I have a family or I have a child, I will have stewardship over my child. Okay? We don't own nothing here. I want everybody to have the humility to understand what I'm saying. You be like, my house, my land, my wife, my dog, my dad. This word, my. Okay, we're going to get back into this again. When I say Babylonian, I'm talking about an immature state of mind, a confused state of mind. You own nothing here. You own nothing here. You're borrowing. You're having stewardship of this. If somebody say, hey, can I put you in charge of this land? We're saying that you have stewardship over this land. I mean, you're taken care of. Just like if you had a wife or a husband. Both things. You don't own your husband and you don't own your wife. That vessel belongs to God, period. Right? We just come into communion and we have agreements. We have stewardship. Like, husband, I would love to manage resources with you. And then your husband be like, oh, wife, I would love to manage resources with you too. All right? You don't own nobody. We're not slave and slave masters here. Not even the land. Somebody said something very profound the other day. Actually, I've heard it many times, right? Through many different vessels again. Because God talks to many people. It could be the same message, different vessel. All right? And I don't get blinded by the physical. All right? But hear me out. They were saying that some people can occupy a land and not actually be in touch with it. It's true. Land chooses us vibrationally. Where this vessel is supposed to be may not be where your vessel is supposed to be. So you could be here, you could be setting the wall, or you're cutting the grass on this lawn and da 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 da. The next thing you know, spirits change, and then they're like, you gotta go. And then the land starts rebelling. Then the people start coming, taking your land, and they're taking your land. Blah blah blah. One, if you're not a good steward, and two, if you just don't have a vibrational match with the land in which you're sitting on. The frequency of the land will not open up to you. Right? This is why you have some barren places, because they weren't good stewards of the land. Think about it just as in a relationship. If you're with a partner and then your partner, you weren't a good steward with the partner, you didn't manage resources well with your partner, whether it be time, energy, attention, love, affection, whatever, it changes hands or the contract gets canceled. This is why it's important for you to be a good steward of oneself, yourself first. Okay, so you can see how it is, what makes you grow, what makes you glow. And then you in union, you can share that stewardship with someone of your choosing, right? Of divine choosing, really. Because it's not just you now, right? That's how it goes. Okay? So a piece of paper might say, oh, this person has ownership of this car. That car could be repossessed. And not only that, in spirit, Something might happen, that car will be not yours no more. Right? And it's not a positive, or it could be for positive reasons, meaning that you're probably going to get something that's more aligned with your frequency. And that's usually always the case. When you don't appreciate something, you lose it or you forfeit it. All right. So stewardship has to do with management, and you have responsibilities to it, right? Meaning what? Nature already had that thing on lock. All right. Nature doesn't need us to protect her. She just needs us not to be in alignment. That's why people be getting killed by natural causes all the time. All the time. All right. When you're not a vibrational match to where you are, everything notices. Kind of like, remember, it was an Inception or the Matrix when Neo was walking around and then everybody was like, who's this ninja? He's not a vibrational match. His awareness is not matching the consciousness state of the collective right here. When you're at a party and you just hear that thing, you need to leave now. You hear that little voice, you need to leave now. Why? Because the vibration's changing. Something is coming that you don't need to be here for. Okay? Everything runs off of frequency and vibration. So your little piece of paper saying, oh, according to man's law, you're not supposed to be here. You're not supposed to live here. This, da, da, da. Nature trumps that. And then universal law trumps, well, I think nature and the universe actually run hand in hand, to be quite honest. I don't think that they have a hierarchy system with that. All right? Because you have to respect nature, period. There's no way around it. Okay? My whole point is that your human laws are the least of all the things. When you go into court and you're talking about this and that and blah, 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 that is like the lowest level of being. Because it's just a communication part. But that's happening above our heads anyway. That's just the physical communication part. Something has already happened in spiritual agreement, universal agreement, and now this is late on the uptake. Okay? So, stewardship versus ownership, you don't own anything. All right? The more that you're just feeding your egoic identity or your physical, and when I say the ego, I mean this idea, this childlike, I won't even say the ego as far as persona, right? It's like this childlike thing where you're like, mine, this is my pen. And truth be told, if this pen doesn't want to be here anymore, it will be gone. Or if my higher self was like, no, this pen don't belong to you, I wouldn't be able to find it ever again. It's no longer in resonance. Do you understand what I'm saying? The same thing with stones, right? Everything has a vibration. You ever buy when malachite was really famous for a little bit because everybody was like, oh, it's so rare and blah 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 blah. Get a malachite stone, right? And then you have it in your house. And then all of a sudden it will go missing. Because one, it probably has already done its job. You already had the frequency exchange, and now it's time to go somewhere else. Okay, this is for the people who kind of follow that language. Okay. Yes, you don't lose things by accident, right? Everything happens spiritually first, and then the physical comes way later after that. So that's why you're responding but to your physical environment is just you're on notice that this happened in spirit. All right. All right. Okay. Patience for those not connected in wisdom, right? So we're talking about the Babylonians, the people. I'm not talking about a physical place, right? I know there was a place, but I'm talking about states of consciousness. All right. So those who are moving in an immature mind state, meaning like, again, the children of God, right? The children of God, the ones who don't know yet themselves. They have not tapped in yet. They haven't realized, they haven't gained all, their eyes are not turned on yet. Their eyes are not open yet. Right? We have patience with them because we understand that they're children. Just like if your child comes up to you and be like, what is 1 + 1? You'd be like, you don't know what 1 + 1 is? Are you on the earth? Don't you don't criticize or condemn. You have patience until they're able to do the maths themselves. All right? So half the time I just be listening. And then, high priestesses, if you're following, what is it? Hermetic teachings, They don't talk. High priestesses are very quiet. It's because they hold wisdom, and wisdom, like, again, doesn't fight. And I would maybe say something like, I don't think that is a wise idea, but that's the most you're going to get out of me, especially if your humanity part has not caught up yet, right? You might need more time in order to rest and allow the wisdom to just swirl above your head until it decides to come down. You are humble enough to allow it to come into your heart. All right, so that's why the high priestess card just be staring there between the white and the black pillars, and she just be staring there. She has I think a scroll in her hand and a pomegranate, right? Just quiet, especially if the answer is already told. Or you don't force wisdom down people's throats. I keep saying that over and over. But we have patience for those who are not connected with wisdom until they decide to relax itself and allow it to take flow. Okay? All right. So there's those with wisdom and those without wisdom. That's why we don't need to argue. There's no fighting here. All right? There's no bacchanal, no pasa pasa. All right? No wahala here in heaven. There's no, we don't do that. For what? Why? Why are we doing this with you? For what? All right. First, knowledge is a step toward wisdom. So once once knowledge is attained, we allow the ingestation period, or the period for you to now incorporate, interpret, and integrate it. So then you could embody it to then move accordingly. Right? So some of you guys are moving ahead of your time, which is good. It's like when you're in class and you do the projects before the due date. That's amazing, because then you're prepared for when the day comes, when the day for your exam comes, right? To test your consciousness, right? To see if you're triggered, blah, 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 blah. You're able to move better. But you have to study. And the first thing you should be studying is oneself, yourself, right? So when you study yourself, you start seeing where you're in resonance with others, where you're not in resonance with others, and then realizing why. You ever meet somebody and they're vibrating at the opposite to you, right? And that's when I usually go neutral. But when you meet people and they're vibrating at a different frequency, for example, let's say I'm going to keep it positive because people tend to gravitate to positivity more than negativity. Let's say that you're operating in love and unity, right? In your own personal thing, you're united. You don't move in contradiction with yourself. But then you meet somebody who's moving in a confused state of being. They're contradicting. They're thinking one thing, but their heart wants another thing, and then they're doing another thing also. Contradiction and confusion. They would usually say things like, "I'm confused," and we know you're confused. We can tell by what the reality that you're creating. We can tell that you're confused, right? Anyway, but let's say they're moving with a confused spirit and you're moving in a holistic spirit, right? And then they start talking and you're realizing how they're contradicting themselves multiple times, even if they had gained wisdom before, but maybe their flesh is now catching up to the wisdom they have attained. And so, they're trying to figure it out still, right? You're going to feel, because you're so sensitive, you have a particular ritual for yourself. You become extremely sensitive to when someone's not operating in that world, right? So just like the people in the Matrix, where everybody was like, "This doesn't belong here," right? You just gain awareness, not to condemn, but you are aware that this person is operating in a state of confusion because you have a reference point that is yourself. Okay? That's how you can tell. That's the feedback loop. All right, so knowledge is having the instructions without the experience of application. This is like when you have intellectualized spirituality, right? So knowledge was given and then they allow time because, again, spirit happens first. It happens in the mental plane, it happens in the spiritual plane, then the mental plane, then the physical plane catches up to it. Then you're like, oh, I understand, because you're going to have the understanding to make the connection, but only the experience itself can allow the integration. So you got to be triggered. You got to realize that you're in the moment to choose a different path, a different portal to go through here. Okay? So all of this is like literally navigating neuron pathways in your brain. This is why there's certain cheat cheat ways or cheat codes or ways of thinking to get you from one state of consciousness to another. There's also things like plant medicines and that kind of bring you into a certain frequency of conscious state that you could either intake things in and skip, you know. But again, integration must happen. That's why even doesn't matter how high you got, you still got to come back down physically unless you decide to just stay there. And then what happens with that is that usually you end up not connecting to your physical body, and then your physical body becomes property of something else that wants to have ownership or over it. Okay? So don't fly too high. All right, that you lose connection with your physical reality because you still need, your body was a gift from God. Okay? And it's not for you to just leave it behind. Okay? So it's your vehicle until the land takes it back. Like I said, you're renting everything. You have stewardship over your vessel right now. All right? You don't really own that. You're renting until you give it back to the land. All right? So make sure you're taking good care of it. All right. All right. So the importance of stillness, that's how you get that. The concept of the you of verses. Okay, we're going to talk about this real quick. Let me use the bathroom. I'll come back. All right. So you ever meet somebody or you have a conversation and someone's like, I'll just use this example. So you like wearing sneakers, so you don't like heels, or you're wearing red, you don't like blue. Okay. Right? Or you usually drink water, you don't like juice, you don't drink wine, you don't do, you da, 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 da. Right? This versus mentality. Okay. Again, it goes back to this idea of polarity and good versus bad, or it's not even good versus bad in this state. They just be like this versus that. Why did you choose this and not that? Da, 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 da. You must only like this, right? They're trying to put you in some kind of, I don't know, compartmentalize you in their brains to understand you. But you, like I said, just like how you can't understand the wholeness of God, is if you have not come to the conscious, the conscious acceptance of the oneness and the wholeness of God, you're going to be operating in the this versus that thing, right? When you haven't accept yourself wholly, like as a whole person, you're going to be one. This also often happens when people look at like, oh, you're this person now, you're not that person anymore, or you don't do that anymore, so that means you're not that person anymore, or whatever the case may be, right? They have not embraced mentally the concept of you being a whole being. What does that mean? The person that you're looking at me right now, I'm still aligned, and the 4-year-old version of me is still connected to me. Okay? It's just that 4-year-old version of me is more mature. So I'm still that person with a different state of consciousness. Do you understand what I'm saying? I have experienced every single thing that any past version of me has experienced. I am not separate from them. I'm not better than them. I don't put myself in some kind of hierarchy. I'm just present with myself. I had to do a lot of work in order to gain understanding and heal different aspects of myself, but all of those versions were me. Even some of you that have seen my demonic side, that was me too. All of it. All of my face, my pretty face, and all the very ugly faces that I can make. They're all me. All of it. All right. So when you meet people who live in a constant need of separation and hierarchy and egoic status, it's a hard concept for them to understand. Right? These people tend to unconsciously, I don't think, because if you bring it to their attention, it gets a little like, because you're disrupting someone's reality a little bit. But these are the type of people also, or the type of consciousness really, because we allow them a way to ascend from it. We're not going to typecast them to be like, this is only them as well, right? The people who share this kind of consciousness, usually are constantly comparing things. Instead of thinking this was divinely created for this person, or this was divinely created for me, they're like, this is better than that because I am better than you because I have this. This is better than that because it has this. You got to be mindful of this kind of consciousness. It sneaks in, it's very subtle. Okay? I look better than that person. This person has better this. That it has nothing to do with anything in this life. Zero things. Everything that everyone has is divinely created for that person and their life journey. There's zero comparison. Think about if you were a creator of something. If you created one piece of artwork, do you compare it to the next? Now, you can see the different transitions or the different evolutions. Like when I created this, I was in this state of mind. When I created this, I was in this state of mind. This is what their differences are. Right? But they're not in hierarchy. Just like if you had children, your children are definitely direct reflections of what you were like in that state of consciousness when you were creating them, whether or not you are consciously aware of it or you were not. Right? And then at certain points, they decide to take ownership of themselves and they will create and evolve accordingly from that state of being from that you gave them, from which they came. But I'm personally not at war with any past versions of myself, nor am I at some kind of lower level or to the future versions of myself. I am one with all of them. Okay? It was already written. It's only up to me to divert from my own past, my own path through my own freedom of will, my freedom of choice. Right? I've died many times, but I don't go back and speak ill of the dead versions of myself. All right? So, the concept of new versus old versions of yourself, it's new. It's a new timeline, new storyline, right? One story is not better than the any other past ones or future ones. It's just each story gains different understanding of awareness. Okay? Remember, the body will always keep the score and the memory, right? This is why we're talking about the certain laws and principles that we put forth just to help gain for people to gain intellectual understanding. But if your soul wants to experience something, it will experience it in its entirety from the beginning to the end. So if you decide, if someone says thou shalt not kill, hey, I don't think it's wise, the elders say, hear it this way so it doesn't seem like a law or something, because you could definitely do what the hell you want to do, for sure. But if someone said, hey, don't commit murder, I don't think that's a good idea, because later on when you become my age and you have consciousness and your consciousness starts evolving, you're going to realize that you just did that to yourself. You're killing yourself. Right? You're harming yourself when you harm others. And then you got to bear the weight of that consciously. Right? For the rest of this physical life, until you go back, and then you may come back again. Who knows? Right? But you will learn the lesson as to why that thing you did was harming yourself by harming others. Okay? Or let's say you have a memory of a traumatic event or a very enjoyable event that your soul wanted to experience. You can never undo that. That never stops. The only best thing that you can do now is to provide yourself with the things that are required in order to mend and heal from it. Or, like I said, like for example, if you take certain drugs and your system reaches a state of being that you deem as heaven, it will be more difficult for you to stop doing those drugs, right? Unless you make a conscious decision to draw back and rebalance your system. Okay? But you will now have a different neuron pathway created that you can, in your resting state, actually be shoved back into that particular timeline and frequency. Unless you're doing your due diligence to do another pathway, form another pathway. and we have a time limit on this, right? Because we're all going to crystallize at some point. I know I'm straying a little bit because it requires a different level of understanding, but past a certain age, when you, or a certain state of being, all those rituals that you're doing every day, right? It becomes solidified in your being. The ink in your book becomes more permanent. Do you understand what I'm saying? Because we're only here in this particular time and space for a limited time until we get a new vessel accordingly. All right? I might come back as a tree. I think that, I mean, I didn't need to say that, but who knows? Whatever next vessel is going to come next. Okay? So everything is whole, is not versus this or this versus that, right? Your body will always keep the score through your memories. This is why you want to be very selective to the things that you're experiencing, because it matters. It literally materializes your reality moving forward. All right? So make sure that you have your standards and your boundaries for yourself so that you don't stray too far from your particular alignment. Right? Because there's particular egregores, particular entities that don't really care about your individual soul purpose, but they just want to have power in numbers. It exists. All right? So be mindful in these streets. What else we got here? Yes, I'm looking at the healed version of myself at 9 years old. We are one, but not the same. We are one, and this is for myself, every version of myself, and every version of God that I meet externally from myself. Okay? We are one, but we are not the same. And that's okay. Right? New in character, right? For you're looking at your past self as you're new in character, meaning there was a character arc. Right? The way I thought before is not the same way as I think now, which is necessary for growth, consciousness, and maturity. You're new in character, but the same genetic signature. God knows her children. All right? So beware of that. You're just operating a different vibration of awareness and integrated consciousness. I wrote down, know which boat you float. Okay, we already spoke about the Yahweh consciousness. So that's the end of this segment, guys. I hope you got some knowledge from it. All right. Remember to flow alongside the natural world is important. All right, that you don't get lost in the world that man is creating, because there's a lot of confusion there. It serves you to connect to a higher state of consciousness so that you can integrate a reality that's not in confusion. Like I said, if you love confusion, you will stay there. And so, like, it's not for me to tell you don't do this, do that, right? But if your heart is in confusion and contradiction, right, you cannot complain. That's the point. That's the point I'm trying to make. If you know that you love bacchanal, wahala, pasa, pasa, then stay there. Don't be looking after the cycle is over and be like, why is everything always going to shit? Do I have demons in my house? It's you. You as a demon. It's you. Right? So pay attention to the people who you keep close, because they're going to be resonating either a past, present, or future version of yourself. They may have keys to those type of portals. So have patience. That's really it.